Good morning, good morning. What is going on, Ant family? Welcome back to another day for our technical analysis. Today is our 17th one. So for anybody that's been following me on Reddit, I've been doing these daily analysis for AMP specifically over the course of a period of time. Today marks, number 17. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. So taking a look at the daily chart, right, we can still see that we are still respecting this falling wedge, as we sort of predicted. With any falling wedge pattern, it's down to sort of, it's bound to, break out, followed by a pullback, and then, probably a bounce off the trend line before going up and retesting our previous support that was turned into now what we see as resistance, right? So again, the market is definitely doing its thing. I just think that, again, we just have to be a little bit patient. Millionaires are made overnight, so to say, in the space of crypto, but, AMP is definitely a token that I think is positioned to move slowly, right? The fundamentals of AMP is essential for, crypto payments going forward in the future. Flex and AMP are positioned to be the infrastructure to facilitate, real world payments using crypto, not only for big businesses, but for global merchants as well. So, yesterday we did see that our candle closed almost as a doji, which was give us a signal that the market is, going to reverse that way. But again, we do see, some slight sell pressure going on. As we can see, the selling volume from yesterday picking up briefly. So yesterday we had some sell volume of 70 million. And the day prior it was 57.74 million. So, we saw a little bit more sell pressure here, but we also saw, bulls enter the market here, which is why, this candlestick almost formed a doji, which would mean to us that, buyers and sellers are agreeing on a specific price. And today, the 30th, we see the volume only peaking at 24 million. So, we do see some, decreasing volume, which is really healthy for all signs of upward momentum going forward. So, decreasing sell pressure would lead us to believe that, what will follow next would be an increase in buying pressure. So, I think, again, we just have to be a little bit patient. We are getting closer and closer to hitting this trend line again. So, I would expect us to either, sort of go up, if this pattern does continue to respect this trend, or we could possibly, break the trend and then head for a retest. If we fail that retest, then, we would get rejected down to our lower levels of support, which would be right here around the 0.038 cent mark. So that's what we have for the daily. Let's take a look at the 4-hour chart just to see what's going on a little bit more in detail. So, yesterday we did spot our bullish crab harmonic pattern. Everything about that has been respected. We did break out of that and move to the upside briefly here. Came down, almost put in this double bottom. So we put a trend line here just so you guys can see. For anybody that's sort of new to technicals, I want to draw this out for you. So when I say double bottom, I mean, this candle right here to this candlestick here, right? We see 1-2 levels of support, but we actually did break that briefly right here. We wicked past it just a little bit, but we touched our trend line, right? Which is pretty significant again. So now we have an additional touch on our trend line. And right now, currently, it looks like we are still moving sideways. So, we may move sideways all the way until we hit the trend line again and possibly make a move to the upside. Or, we could break this trend and come down to our previous support. like we saw on the daily. So, right now, AMP isn't really doing anything too exciting on the technicals, but I think that we are in store for some upward momentum. On the 1 hour chart, we can pretty much see the same thing, just in a little bit more detail. We see that we are still moving sideways, moving sideways. We did touch the trend line again, as you can see right here. But, the market has to make a decision sometime soon, right? The week is still early, and, these patterns take time. They definitely take time to form. Our falling wedge has been respected. Everything from our technical analysis has been respected. And AMP just tends to move at its own pace. So, patience is the name of the game, especially for this market. But in other news, AMP did make the news again, right? So, we had this article here from Cointelegraph, which says that the bulls are back, but regulatory fears hamper the DeFi and altcoin recovery, right? So it talks about how the bulls are back from their perspective and their deep dives, but they also talk about how some of the top coins are down, but they also saw some outliers, right? Only 12 out of the top 100 managed to represent positive performances over the last 30 days. And Lord behold, who do we see as number 2? AMP, right? They specifically mentioned AMP right here again. Flexa and Quant were, recently listed on Coinbase, and they are the 2 leaders in the 12 outliers that managed to, perform positively over the last 30 days. We have AMP performing and, staying positive, a plus 76% gain over the last 30 days. So, this is very bullish in my opinion. And I think that the recognition from the broader market of AMP and Flexa are starting to get a little bit more awareness. And just to dive into some other news, I know that's not AMP specifically, but more so Bitcoin, because it's definitely important to pay attention to what Bitcoin is doing. But, this article from Decrypt says that institutional investors are losing interest in Bitcoin. And it basically talked about how, institutional investors are pulling out their money from Bitcoin ETFs in Canada and also with Grayscale, right? So too long didn't read. They give you these bullet points right here, but in my personal opinion, I don't think that they're necessarily losing their interest in Bitcoin. I think that they're pulling out their money for this specific reason right here, right? So this article says that 650 U.S. banks will soon be able to offer Bitcoin purchases to 24 million customers. Now, if I was an institutional investor and, I wanted to get direct exposure to Bitcoin, or in other words, if I wanted to hold Bitcoin myself, I wouldn't put money into an ETF because, with ETFs, you have indirect exposure to the asset. I would take out the money like they're doing, and I would make my own purchase so that way I could own Bitcoin and have it in my own wallet, right? I think that's the most logical explanation for that. They have no other sort of analysis that shows where that money is going yet. But, in my unbiased opinion, I think the most logical thing for institutional investors to do that actually want to own Bitcoin, right, to have full ownership of it, is to take out their money from the ETFs and wait so they can make purchases of Bitcoin themselves. I think that is the most logical explanation for it. And, you can take a deep dive on this article yourself also, but, I think that this is very healthy for the Bitcoin space. But, again, I could be wrong. But we'll just see, how this plays out. And last but not least, I thought that this was also pretty interesting, right? Especially for the entire crypto space. So Coinbase is planning to build a crypto app store, right? So this is very similar to what Apple is doing. As Coinbase CEO mentioned, he was inspired from the Apple App Store, but he wants to build his own crypto D App Store, right? That will give exposure to not only customers who want to use different apps that support crypto, but also for developers who are the leaders and pioneers in the crypto space, because without developers this technology would not exist. So I think that this is very bullish news for crypto, especially for Coinbase stock, which has been sort of dropping over time. It may have found its bottom yet, maybe not, but overall I think that this Coinbase App Store will definitely catch on to the mainstream audience, which could probably drive a little bit more mass adoption for crypto. So, in conclusion, wrapping things up, coming right back to AMP. Again, all of our technicals has been respected. The fundamentals have, continuously increased, and the market sentiment is, everything that we expect it to be. So I think that we just have to be a little bit patient, and maybe over the next 1, 2, possibly 3 days or more, we should see what AMP wants to do, right? So either a move to the upside, or possibly breaking this trend, retesting it and pushing down to the downside. But I personally don't see that happening. But again, the market will do its thing one way or another. But tomorrow we'll definitely deep dive on this in the morning as well. But I hope you guys have a great day. If you like this content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, please. And until tomorrow, peace out, guys.